Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second alumni panel for the CWRU Women in Tech Initiative spring event. It's so good to be in person and to see you all in this event. I just want to be very quick. I want to thank Craig Newmark and Craig Newmark Philanthropies to make this happen for us. It's his gift that actually started this initiative and it keeps it, going. And I'd like to thank all our panelists. I know you're all busy, but you made time to come and talk to us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jessica, Brianna, Anna, Alison. Thank you very much. We are really grateful that you're here with us today. And to welcome you to the event, we have the Dean's Office represented by Professor Zorman, one of our own. Thank you very much.
So on behalf of Dean Raghu Balakrishnan, the Dean's Office, the Case School of Engineering, and the university community, it gives me great pleasure to kick this meeting off. It's really exciting. As you know, the School of Engineering values at the highest level diversity, equity, inclusion, representation, and all the things that make engineering in today's modern world way better than it was when it was dominated by gray-haired guys like me. Absolutely, absolutely. So we're so delighted to participate in this event. The dean was unfortunately not able to make it tonight because he had another commitment, so you're kind of stuck with me. But I know I see many familiar faces out there in the crowd. Some of you have probably had me in Engineering 210, yeah? See, they don't want to admit it. Or 321. Any 321 students in here? Yeah? And yeah, absolutely. Some of you served as TA in one of my classes and did a great job. So anyway, yeah, we're delighted. And every year that this event's gone on, I've participated in it. It's always been a great event. I want to, as Everin did, I want to thank the panelists for today's participation. I have direct connection to at least two of them, right? Because they were advisees of mine, so I'm really excited to see them, catch up, and stuff like that. So, I guess, let's go ahead and kick off the event.
Yes, thank you very much. And before we turn to the panel, we actually have a message from Craig Newmark. We invited him, but he is going to be at a conference in Washington, D.C., but he was kind enough to record a message for us. So we will just hear from him very briefly, and then we will start our panel discussion. Thank you.
So everyone listening will at times find people who aren't willing to give them a break and need to be reminded that you should treat people like you want to be treated, per the golden rule. Through my career in computer sciences, starting about 50 years ago at Case, I remember having a friend back then, a woman whose bachelor's was in agriculture, who was going for a master's or doctorate in computer sciences. I did a little bit to encourage her, tried to follow through with the attitude through the following decades, did find that that wasn't universal, that there were a lot of problems, including harassment in industry. And now I'm trying to take some action regarding that while encouraging people to play fair and to follow through with that. Most of what helped me in my career was when people try to break through my dysfunction. I am a nerd, 1950 style, with socialization issues, which is not rare in the field of computer sciences. It's just a ongoing kind of issue. And when people try to help me understand that I had these problems, sometimes they manage to get through to me and things would get better for a while. So the big meta issue is when people are giving you good advice, you should listen. Teamwork skills for working with other people need to be taught and then to taught more. There should perhaps be more of an emphasis on team solving problems than individual solving problems. It relates to matters of fit. The idea is that different corporations, startups, or big companies have a culture, for better or for worse, and people talk about fitting into those. And generally speaking, people in HR and hiring managers have no or little ability to talk about their culture and what it takes to fit in there. Another problem is that by the time the person starts work, the project or job that they were hired for may have shifted a lot or even disappeared. These are things that happen that you want to be prepared for, and it might be hard to teach that kind of thing, but those things are really important, and you have to define how people are going to perceive you. You don't want to let other people define you because they may be very wrong and they may do it maliciously. And if you're successful enough to be noticed, you may be successful enough and have enough of a profile for people to want to make a buck making up a story. And the more successful you are, the more that will be a thing. So you really do have to think about your reputation and communications. At the beginning of your career here, you have the chance to work with each other, to help each other define what you're about. You have the chance to work together even when you're in different companies to support each other. Thanks, and remember, like the Batman says, I'm probably not the nerd you want, but I'm the nerd you got.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much to our panelists who were able to join us today, as well as all of you guys. It means a lot that all of you are here and able to come today. And I also wanted to give a special thank you to Professor Cavusoglu. She put in a lot of effort for this event, and it wouldn't have been able to happen without her. So thank you once again. So just to introduce myself, my name is Rohi Mehta. I'm a second-year computer science student here at Case Western.
Hi, my name is Joy Fan. I am a second-year computer science and psychology student here at Case.
So to start off, we'll start off with a quick introduction by each of our panelists. So Allison, if you want to start us off.
Sure. So I'm Allison Hess Stunning. Anything else you want to know right now?
If you want to introduce your job.
Okay,
and what
all
you
right.
do.
All right. So I'm from the Department of Veterans Affairs, where I am a research investigator. I was at Case here as a grad student, and then I continued really with the same research I was doing there into my career with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I also teach a couple of classes in ECSE at Case.
Hi, my name is Anna. I was lucky enough to go to Case, so I got a degree in BME EE, graduated in 2018, did my master's in Michigan, and now I work at Google in hardware. Yes.
Hi, my name's Brianna. I also went to Case, as you guys probably know, where I double majored in computer science and marketing, and then I also double minored in artificial intelligence and computer gaming. And I graduated in 2020, and I've been working at JP Morgan Chase since I graduated.
I'm Jessica Fitch. I graduated from Case in 2006 with my bachelor's in computer science, and then again in 2009 with my master's in computer and information science. I am currently a software engineer and manager at Google, working on infrastructure related to Google Maps.
So next we'll be going into specific sectors of work. So Anna, how did your experience at graduate school impact your technical skills compared to your undergraduate experience?
I feel like during undergrad you have a lot of more time with your professors. So make sure you're using your office hours. Make sure you're sucking up all that you can from your classes, because when you're in grad school you have those more, it's very technical classes. You're doing research, so you're gonna have less time to interact and really bond with your professors. That's how my experience was. And you're also looking for jobs, which is also really stressful. So make sure that you're using your time during undergrad really well to build those connections, because they really play a role once you're 5 years in. And I'm so happy to meet with my professor still, and you still have that connection open. Yeah.
My next question is for Brianna. How has your experience as a double major in college impacted your career as a software engineer?
Time management. Also, while I double majored, I was on the varsity volleyball team here, so I had very little time for wiggle room. So it was very much, I woke up in the morning and I set a schedule for the day, and then I would go to class, do homework in my free time, and then go to practice and go to bed, and then repeat. So how that's helped me in my actual work now is getting things done. You have 2 weeks to get work done, which is called a sprint typically. And I look at what I have to get done, any other requirements I have to do at work as well. And I schedule that, and typically I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna set some wiggle room for myself to be done a couple days before sprint, and not like getting an assignment in at 11:59. Like submitting it a couple days earlier, let everybody else test, because when you're in industry, it's not just your work that you're submitting, it's other people that's waiting for you to submit your work so that they can review it to then, continue the process.
Jessica, how has your experience differed working at a small company versus a large company?
So at a small company, you really get to impact the outcome of what's happening. You get to wear all the hats, whether you want them or not. And you can feel the stress, both the good and the bad, of being able to have that impact. At a larger company, you're a cog in a very comfy machine, perhaps. It behooves you to focus more on your local portion of that company to be able to impact those around you and the particular project you're on versus the company as a whole. There are more support structures in place usually, so things like employee resource groups that can help support underrepresented groups or people who are working through disabilities. More perks, free coffee. So there's a balance there.
Allison, would you be able to expand a little bit more on your area of research?
Sure. My research is broadly in neural interfaces. So basically, if you're unaware, the nervous system is basically an electrical system. And there are a lot of reasons why we might want to tap into the nervous system, either to record from it or stimulate it, which is very applicable in individuals who have had, say, a spinal cord injury or other neurological disease or injury. So where my research fits is on the part of this interface that actually makes contact in, say, the brain. I'm focusing on the brain. And we're trying to make devices that will integrate well with biological systems for a long time, so we can tap into the nervous system or tap into the brain for an extended period of time, overcoming a lot of the biological responses. So we've got multidisciplinary interactions going on there.
Anna, how has your experience as an international student impacted both your academia and industry experience?
Okay, so my first year, I didn't know how to speak English properly. So it was really challenging to follow the classes. I had to record the classes, listen to it again. And also, you're away from your country, you're away from your family. I mean, most of us are if you're going to college, but you have that cultural barrier that you also need to get used to. So having a support group, making your friends, getting acquainted with the language. So I think after that first year, everything got easier because you have your support group. Now you can understand classes without having to record them. So I would say that things get better. So if you are in that situation, you're a first or a second year, things do get much, much better It's exponential. Third year is going to be easier. Fourth year is going to be even easier. And then when it comes to looking for jobs, there are companies that are willing to sponsor you, and you just don't lose hope. There's going to be a lot of no's, but don't lose hope. It's there. You just need to search a little bit more sometimes. Yeah. But it gets better. Yeah.
Brianna, why did you choose to pursue an MBA?
So currently I'm pursuing my MBA at the University of Florida. And I chose to do this so that I could, one, advance my career, but then my undergrad was so technical heavy that I wanted to enhance my soft skills even more. So then if I want to pursue like a CTO position or something like that, that I'm not having that barrier of trying to understand the business lingo and the business technologies that they're using, but actually being able to apply it to the technology that I'm already doing. So that, and then I'm also young in my career right now and I don't have a ton of responsibilities. So I thought that right now would be the best time to pursue MBAs.
Jessica, how have your internship experiences impacted your overall experience working at a full-time job?
So I had 3 software internships prior to starting full-time. They helped me figure out what I like and don't like, at least as an initial starting position when pursuing a full-time job. They gave me a sense of how operating in the corporate industry world differed from the academic world. There's pluses and minuses, but they are different in many respects. So being more prepared for that change. And they were a differentiator when looking for jobs. So it was a benefit to my resume. And ultimately, it made me really want to pay it back and support internship experiences at every company that I was at.
Allison, how have you connected your interdisciplinary paths to your current work at the VA?
Yeah, so I was always interested in flexible electronics or tiny flexible things. But also I wanted that research to be impactful. So within the VA, that allowed me to find ways to take what I learned as a grad student and keep expanding and keep pushing down that route. But in order to do that, really needed to learn more about the biology side, aside from just the devices and the materials. Needed to learn about the biology. But then operating within, say, the VA, or within, really anywhere where you're going to do research. So how are you going to set up an animal study? What is the design? What is the paperwork where you have to let everyone know what the experiment is and probably go outside of your comfort zone to get everything approved. So I think that those are the biggest things, is learning, continuing to learn, being open to learning beyond what I learned as an undergrad, what I learned as a grad student, just continuing in diverse fields.
So the next question that I have is geared to all of you. Since you do have a technical background, what is your favorite technical challenge that you have solved? Anna, we can start with you.
With me. Okay, so in my first job, we had an ADC that was taking a lot of space in the IC. So my first job, I was an analog IC designer, so circuit designer, and they were thinking of removing that from the chip because the chip, all of the real estate is super valuable. So I was looking into old papers, so I was able to reduce the area by 60%. And they actually put that in the chip that they were about to release. So that was my first baby. So I have. Yes.
Okay, so when my second internship, I worked for PNC, and I was actually a product lending intern, which was more on the business side of things. And then my manager took me in his office and he was like, I have a CS background, and I noticed on your resume you have a CS. You're pursuing your CS right now. So why don't you look at, like, create a tool for me? We're trying to retain these customers, their maturity date's coming up soon, but when we call them to get their information, we have them on hold for over 30 minutes. So we need to be able to look up their information. I know, I'm like, why would you call me? Like, and put me on hold for 30 minutes. So I was like, okay. So originally, at my previous internship, I had taught myself how to write Python. So I'm like, oh, Python would be great for this. I could parse the database, and it'd be awesome, and then I'll just populate it into an Excel spreadsheet. Well, I had the opportunity to basically be my own Scrum Master, my own software engineer. I get to talk to the product, well, I was the product owner, and I got to talk to the business. Like, I got to wear all the hats. And what was really funny about it was now I'm sitting here with all the people that make the decisions, and I type an account number in, and we're just sitting there. I'm like, so how's everybody's day? And they're like, okay, can you make this shorter? Because it was like 2 minutes, like 2.5 minutes. And I'm like, okay. So I spent about 7 weeks to get to that. And then the last week before I had to do my biggest presentation, I scrapped the whole idea and went to Tableau. And Tableau is something I actually learned in PBL in the business school. And I used SAS and some Python and different languages, went to the database, attached the database to Tableau, and made a really pretty interface that populated the information in real time. So as you were typing it, it was populating all the information, which was really cool. And like, I think a couple months after I did that project, they actually released it into production. And so I was gone, and whoever took it up after me, they reached out to me and they're like, we just released your project. And I thought it was like a really cool thing. So all these people who were trying to retain these customers were using that Tableau tool to find them. But yeah.
One of my more recent challenges, I'll describe it at a somewhat high level. The machinery that I operate on processes huge amounts of data, and it concentrates on throughput. So you get all of Street View imagery and you stuff it into the pipe and you just keep pushing, and a couple weeks later you get all these amazing results out, which is fantastic, but sometimes you just have a single image and you want to get the results from just that single image. And telling people, so you want the results from that one image, can you give me 3 weeks? It's not quite, up there with, let me put you on hold for 30 minutes, maybe. It's probably worse. But so being able to take that system and reuse the vast majority of the code and configuration that was already in place and shift it to be able to continue to support that large scale, large throughput, but high latency, while also being able to support a service approach that could have small scale but low latency support. So reusing the code, reusing the configuration, and shifting that while the existing system was operational without breaking any of my existing clients, we had a party.
For me, usually whatever the most recent challenge is kind of my favorite, but one recent one had to do with developing optimal microfluidic geometries for an implantable neural probe that was going to incorporate drug delivery on board. What I liked about what happened with that is that we were able to search the literature and find a parameter, a particular parameter that would help us with our design. And with that particular parameter, said if our geometry we had a certain dimension less than a certain, a certain number, then we expected the channel to work. If it was larger, it wasn't going to work. And so we implanted both. And it turned out that the predictions worked just like we expected based on the literature and the science. So really, anything that is backed up by science and isn't just magic or luck, that's a challenge that I like solving.
So for each of you, what was the most valuable takeaway that you gained from your time in college?
I have one very important. Make sure that you have a work-life balance. So classes are important, but sleep is also important. Make sure that you're getting your exercise, that you're eating well, because otherwise you can burn out. So that's very, very important. So make sure that you're sleeping. And the other thing is, don't think of your classes as the grades that you're getting from them, is what information you're getting. Because 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you're still going to remember some of your classes, but you're not going to remember any of the exams. You're not going to remember the points that you got deducted because you didn't put the correct units. You're not going to remember any of that, but you're still, if you got the good part of your classes, you're going to still remember all of that. And if anything, you can always go back to your notes as well. Yeah. But don't worry about grades too much. Yeah. And sleep. Very important. Yes. Yes.
For me, I would definitely say don't be afraid to ask for help, especially early on, because if you ask for help and understand what you're supposed to do, you get what she was talking about, like the best part about college, because you're not stressed out trying to figure out how am I going to do this? How am I going to get this code done? You go understand it. It's like, oh, that's what I was missing. Yes. And now in my workplace, like today I had a problem and I asked like 2 other people because I was kind of embarrassed to ask my team lead. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll ask him. And then we get on a call and he was like, oh, just restart this. I was like, it was that simple. But I asked for help. I asked multiple people for help. I wasn't ashamed to. Otherwise, I would have been working on a very simple issue for a very long time. And sometimes all you have to do is see it done once. And then you know, okay, that's how to do it. So when you see other occurrences of that, whether it be at school for an assignment in like freshman or sophomore year, and then you see the occurrence happen again senior year, like you understand. So, and you're not afraid to ask for help and go to TA office hours. And when the professors write that on the board, it's not really a suggestion. It's optional, but I highly recommend. And then, like she was saying, like work-life balance, it starts now. Like if you are always working on your homework and you never set time for yourself to actually look up and enjoy the fact that you're at a really nice college and you have friends that like can be your lifelong friends and everything else, like I can't even remember some of the most stressful things that happened in college. And I just thought about that today. I was like, interesting, like I've been out for about 3.5 years and I can't really remember the most stressful things, because at the time it feels like it's life crushing, and then now it's like, oh, I made it, like I did it. So just remember to enjoy the moment while you're there.
Well, I got one very practical piece, which was that I could never live in a place with this much cloud cover. I mean, it's kind of a joke, but it also wasn't for me. I turned down offers in Seattle because I learned that about myself. So it was important, not going to be the case for everybody. The thing that I would say to take away is Case is really good at throwing you into the deep end and saying, go learn by date X, and you have to do it over and over again. Taking a class for finite machines, and you have to learn Perl by the time the first assignment is due in 2 weeks. And what's your support? Well, there's the internet now, so that's good. And being able to do that and figuring out how to do it without a lot of official support, doing it over and over again, building that confidence, knowing you can do it. The industry is always going to be changing. The job requirements are usually less requirements and more the laundry list of what they think they're going to be working on that month. So if you're able to go in there with your strong fundamentals and say, yes, I feel confident in myself that I'm going to be able to learn this, project that, start, and you're going to do just fine. You're going to ramp up.
So for me, I echo a lot of what my other panelists have said in terms of making sure you're actually learning what the classes are intending to teach. It's not about just getting the assignment done. It's about actually learning the material, however you have to do that, regardless of what the exam might be. But Also, I think this is a really good time to explore your interests, in terms of where you might want to work, what fields you might want to be in, because you might be an electrical engineer or a computer scientist, but that's still really broad, right? So it's a good time to find out, well, how are you going to apply your knowledge and look into that a little more, and don't pigeonhole yourself.
Perfect, thank you. And I know Anna and Brianna, you both mentioned work-life balance. So I know as college students, we are always looking for ways to maintain that work-life balance. So how do you maintain a good work-life balance throughout your careers? And let's start with Anna, Brianna, and then Jessica.
Google Calendar is your friend. Put time that you're going to bed, put time that you're going to wake up, and actually follow through. It's actually really, really useful. So make sure you spend some time planning your week. So on Sundays, I actually spend some time planning my week. I started doing triathlon training, I don't know why, and it got really intense. So now I need to fit all of those workouts. So schedule your time and be really organized, because it pays off. Because then you get enough sleep, and then everything is good. Yes. Yeah.
Well, I completely agree with you. I'm one of those people where I like to write it down, and I know I can get it out of my mind. So I not only put it in my Google Calendar, my Outlook calendar, but I just bought another calendar, like a physical one, so that I can write down all my class assignments when they're due. Yes. So then I'm like, okay, this assignment's due on this day, and I see it physically in front of me. And then it gets all that clutter out of your head, so you can think clearly, because it's like down somewhere. And then also too, just have other hobbies outside of your job. My mentor at my job told me, like, unless you have your own business or something like that, only give them about 70 to 80% of yourself, so you can give that other to yourself, whether it be triathlon training. I like to bake. I like to take my dog on hikes. Like, I work out every morning, so doing other things for yourself, otherwise you will burn out what you're doing. But honestly, one of my friends just told me about a podcast about you'll burn out if it's something you don't love doing, because things you love to do energize you. So make sure whatever field you go into or whatever you choose to do energizes you, because then you won't feel that burnout. But yeah, that's how, for me, I write things out. Don't necessarily plan my life out to the T all the time, but I do at least write out what today is going to have in store for me, so that I can get it done. And then just enjoy the people around you. I know I said that the last time around, but I love spending time with my dog and just not looking at a computer sometimes. But yeah.
It's interesting to hear some of the perspectives here. I tend to be a very organized person, and that worked until it didn't. So I've had to adjust my strategy. At this point, it's more about being able to be flexible with what happens, knowing my schedule. I'll start with my schedule at 7 a.m., and by 8 a.m. that has usually changed. However, at a higher level, to echo your mentor, your employer is there to get as much out of you as they can. They are not there to give you a healthy work-life balance, whatever they tell you. So it is up to you to define your limits. It is easier if you go in having already set them, and then when your employer is trying to push them, know when you're ready to push back. If necessary, walk away. It's still a good industry. There are other opportunities if push comes to shove. Being able to say that you're not going to reschedule your vacation because there's an urgent deadline coming up, just like there always is. You're not going to continue to work long hours month after month because there's a crisis, just like there always is. Knowing those limits and sticking with them. I also don't let my company contact me after hours.
So what skills have you discovered to be beneficial to your current work? And let's start with Brianna, and then we'll go down.
So communication. Communication, I find when you're talking about your work, explaining to whether it be a product owner or whether it's another team lead where you need help or what is currently completed or why you haven't completed said work and why you need more time to do it. Communication is such a big piece because in this new work lifestyle that we have where there's a lot of hybrid or remote work, they're not sitting right next to you watching your every move. So you have to be able to communicate. And I think that that's something as you get into your higher up classes here at CASE that you start doing more because you get more team-based assignments and you have to learn how to communicate with your team and explain to them, hey, well, this was my opinion on it. And like starting doing those in this sort of format helps you when you go into industry and there might not be a lot of women in the room. So you have to feel confident enough to be like, hey, so when I was doing this, I thought of this idea. And then they might tell you no, they might give you a good reason why not, and then you just take it, but don't let that sit you down. So, yeah, I'm very vocal. I know not everybody in our field is, but I find that that has helped me a lot, is being very vocal in your opinion and know when to speak up and when to just kind of be like, okay, well, this isn't really the situation to do that. So, yeah. Huh? This way? That way?
This way.
Oh.
Go for it.
So definitely communication. Project planning is something that scales, whether that's at an individual level, setting your calendar for the day, or as you're moving into larger projects and being able to work towards that. Being able to sell yourself, being able to present yourself as the best candidate for the position, being able to communicate clearly. I would also say communication isn't just about presenting, outward. It's about listening and being able to absorb what is coming your way. Other things that help that I feel I didn't start out with a lot. Organizational intelligence, being able to navigate the organizations around you, and emotional intelligence. Possibly underrated in the tech industry, not something that tends to be taught in your coursework. Really helps a lot of situations.
For me, communication for sure. Writing is a big one, I would say. And I'm always finding that there is a new level of writing well that I never quit learning there. I know that. But also being able to, say, sell your vision for a project or any kind of endeavor and getting other people on board, whether that be collaborators or mentees that might be working with you, so that your vision can be realized. And there are a lot of sub-skills in there as well, but I'll just group them all together as selling your vision.
And just think these are all great advice, but also don't take anything personally. So if someone is rude to you that day, maybe they had a horrible fight with their significant other at home. It's not you. And don't let your worth be defined by the other person. Know your worth. And if someone is trying to make you feel small, know your worth. Like, no, this is not okay. So respect them, but also respect yourself. Know your worth.
Great, thank you. And since this is a Women in Tech panel, how has being a woman in tech impacted your academia and industry experience? And we'll start with Jessica, then Allison, Anna, and Brianna.
Well, first I have to start with the story of day one at CASE and walking to class with some other students and a male student helpfully turning to me and asserting that I only was admitted to CASE because I was a woman. That was one of the more blatant examples of dealing with othering, but I have never been in the majority. I have never seen myself reflected in the majority of leadership, in the faculty. So I was fortunate in that my mother was computer science before me early on in the field, so I was able to see myself in the field, just not as the majority. And I would say without having had those experiences, I would not have poured nearly as much energy into mentoring ever since.
So I think I feel really quite fortunate that I've had very few experiences where I felt that, you know, being a woman has negatively impacted my career in any way or my education. Certainly there is an awareness that you might be the only woman in the room or in a group, but that hasn't really bothered me so much. I guess so, just to put it on maybe a little of a lighter note, I do a lot of work in labs and I work with a lot of equipment. And a lot of these were clearly defined or designed by and for men. And men tend to be a little bit taller than a lot of women. So there have been a lot of like needing to get stools and needing to get help or having people help with carrying things or, you know, muscling things out when needed. So I think that's really been the biggest impact on my career.
Yeah, sometimes I go on top of tables to reach stuff. Yes. One thing that I would say is, I think my advice of not taking things personally is from a previous experience. Also know when to walk away. Because sometimes it's an environment that you're not going to grow, you're just going to be unhappy. And get away from that environment, find something else. You're going to have people that are going to believe in you, they're going to grow with them. So don't be afraid of change. Yes.
I had a really good Oh, that's where I was going, sorry. So my mom and my aunt, so my mom originally went to University of Michigan for computer science for 9 years, and she made it. Then she worked at IBM for a while, and my aunt currently works at Quicken Loans as a senior software engineer. And having both of them as role models for me really helped push me. And it's actually kind of funny because I remember talking to Professor Konemacher my junior year about this. When I originally got into technology, my mom took me to computer camp and I put this computer together and then I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I came to school for computer science, and then junior year, Professor Konemacher says, that's really computer engineering. And I'm like, well, it's a little late for me to go back and switch it. So I'll just stick with computer science. So, but anyway, back to the, so my impact in technology, I felt that at Case, originally like in the lower level classes, I did see a lot more women in tech. And then as you start going up, I started seeing more male in tech. And then it became one of those things where if you picked a group, I remember there was one group in my software engineering, and there was one other woman. I'm like, hey, you want to be in my group? She's like, oh, I already picked my group. And it was like all these other guys. I'm like, okay, fine then. I'll go find another group. So it happened to be like me and one other woman and then like 3 guys. And we created this really awesome project together, but I didn't take that like as any hurt feelings. I was like, you know what? Like now it's terrible. I recognize when there's women in the room, but I don't think anything of it if I'm the only woman in the room because it's such a male dominant field. I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm here. And then there's women. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's another woman here? Hey, how's it going? So then I become friends with them. Yeah. But you just have to be confident in who you are in this field, because if you're looking for that other woman you can confide in when you're working in technology, you're not going to find it. Like, I hate to say it, but as you continue going up the ladder, which I hope everybody here does do that, so then there's that other person, younger person, that can look up to you guys and say, hey, I'm going to do it because this person I know did it. And that's what you can always kind of keep in mind, is that there's always somebody looking up to you, whether it's another person who was walking down the street, family, friends, whoever, that's like, hey, I like their drive and stuff in life. And so there's always somebody that's looking towards you for, so yeah. I don't really know if that answered the question, but I hope that was good advice.
Perfect. So this kind of covers, a lot of you guys covered this question, but what would your advice be to a young woman looking to enter your field? And we can start with Allison and then go Anna, Brianna, and
So I would say to have many mentors. Make use of them, because there's never going to be one mentor that can be everything for you. So take what you can from each of them, make sure they know your goals, and I guess that's it. That's all. Yeah, mentors.
Yep. That, and also attending career fairs, talking to your professors, build your network, because they can help you. They've been there, yes. And yeah, when you go, that's something that I wish I've done more, going to career fairs and learning more about different companies if you choose that route. And yeah.
Yeah, I would say keep an open mind all the time. I always joke around, like, since I work at a bank now, that's not something when you're younger, oh my God, I can't wait to work for a bank. But everybody always says, I can't wait to work for Facebook. I can't wait to work for Google. But I went to an awesome networking event and I met some really great people, and I liked the culture that they had there. And I'm like, well, you know what? This seems like a good next step for me. So just staying open-minded is that, and then just staying confident in who you are and not letting anybody talk you down.
So first of all, if you're looking to get into the field, I would say do it. Next, it's a wide field, so keep trying different things. If the first one doesn't seem like it's really for you, maybe it's banking instead. Maybe it's a different field. There's a lot of different opportunities out there. The third one, in addition to finding good mentors, find your support network. No matter what happens, there's going to be some rocky parts in life, and being able to have people who have your back can help support you through whatever those challenges are. That's how you get through them.
Perfect, thank you. And then last question. So after this panel, all of you will have the opportunity to network with everyone. So just to have help with the audience getting to know more about you, name 3 topics that people can come talk to you about. And let's start with Anna, then Brianna, Jessica, and then Allison.
Anyone want to talk about bikes? That's bikes. I love cycling more than anything. Also mental health. Welcome to contact me. And also anything international student related. I'm pretty much an open book. You can ask me anything. Yeah, so, yeah.
If anybody wants to talk to me about networking or time management, or if you have really cute dogs and you just want to show me, yes. I love dogs. So, yeah.
Managing up, so your internships or whatever, figuring out how to manage your managers. I also, so I'm low vision. I won't actually be able to see any of your name tags. Please bear with me and just introduce yourselves. If you want to talk about disability in the workplace, both visual, I've also had mobility challenges in life. And then last one, just if you want to talk about day-to-day in the industry, I've worked at a few companies and happy to talk about that.
So my 3 things are doing research for the federal government. I run a summer internship program for undergraduate research, so talk to me about that. And I'd also be very happy to talk to you about baseball.
Nice, thank you. And just for everyone to know, all the panelists are super willing to share their experiences, so don't hesitate to reach out and talk with them. And Arohi and I would like to thank all the panelists for coming out today. It was super great to hear about your experiences at Case Western, but also further in the workplace. And we also want to thank Professor Gherkin Kavasoglu for everything she's done for tonight. It's been a great event. And thank you to everyone for coming today. So, yeah. And we will start opening up for Q&A. Are we opening up for Q&A? Okay, perfect. So if
Questions for our panelists?
Hi. I know all of you touched on this a bit, but I wanted to ask your opinion on being a woman in the tech industry. How do you make sure your voice is heard in a room full of majority men without being combative and while still maintaining professionalism, but while making sure your input is being considered?
I've found that my team is pretty receptive of hearing my ideas. So this doesn't typically happen, but I just moved to a team that has 4 women, 5 including me, and then the product owner's a man, and the UI lead and the dev lead are men. So it's a little different. So they do say, hey, what are your opinions on this? So they actually give us that floor to voice our opinions. On the previous teams I've worked on, they do kind of leave like a little open area of like a pause, like, all right, does anybody have any follow-up? And then that's typically where you can say, hey, I have a question on this, or hey, I was looking into this, and based off of the research I found. So just make sure anything you say is backed up, so then they can, like once they start seeing, oh, she has great ideas, then they'll start coming to you for that and waiting for you to like say things. Yeah.
I would also say it tends to vary quite a bit depending on your circumstances. Once you have been in position for a while and earned the respect, it gets a lot easier. Yes. When you're first new in there, this is, one of my colleagues calls it your time to ask dumb questions. They need to be the smart, dumb questions, the ones that show that you understand the background, but even if it's not showing, new ideas or something, if you're showing that comprehension, if you're showing up, being able to project that confidence that you are going to have that voice, that tends to cause others to view you as someone who is able to contribute now or in the future. There's also kind of some pre-gaming you can do. We talked about written communication earlier, so being able to comment on email threads, on documents, and being able to share that. Not everybody is able to speak up in the moment and feel like you'll be your best articulate self. So particularly in those cases, being able to do those offline reviews and show that you have those ideas and are able to contribute is another way.
Yeah. So my first job, it was a group, I think there were 20 people and 2 women. So 2 things that I found that actually really helped when we had the big meetings. I would review all of the slides, all of the information that I could get before the meeting. I would do that because then you were more prepared, so you were more comfortable. And the other thing was asking questions in one-on-one settings first. So then you're more used to the person before you engage in the bigger situation. And then it worked pretty well. Yeah.
I agree with the one-on-one allies and making sure you're heard by others, and that you can kind of vet them, they can kind of vet your ideas, and you get feedback locally, and then you can expand upon that to a larger group.
I also wanted to add one other thing too, is just taking opportunities that you can, when you can. So like say you're working like one-on-one with somebody and saying, oh, I'll send the email, or hey, I'll mention that to the group. So then now you're getting your name out there and you're talking more. So then they see, oh, she's working on this. So they'll reach out to you more too at the beginning.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my name's Ashley. I was just wondering if you guys could share a little bit about how you decided to make your decision of what you guys are going to pursue after your undergrad. Like personally, I'm trying to debate about whether I should start working or whether I should look into applying for a master's degree. And if so, I pursue a master's degree. Should it be like, an MBA or like, something if I want to further my knowledge in computer science? So
That's a hard one.
Okay.
You go first.
No,
Yeah.
no, you, oh,
No, no.
all right. So my, for me, I feel like it wasn't that difficult of a decision to decide to go to grad school. I chose an undergraduate major that combined, it was engineering physics, but it combined electrical engineering, physics, and material science. And the major was kind of designed to set people up for grad school. So I kind of always knew that that was the next step. In terms of which direction I went into, that was kind of based on the classes I liked, but also I had some internships as an undergrad that kind of led me, to where I ended up as here. So I think that it can be valuable to get, say, a master's degree, if that's what you're considering. If you think you want to be a master in, say, engineering or in computer science. So what field are you, what's your major?
My major is computer science.
Yeah. So if you want to have some expertise in some subfield of computer science, then absolutely go get a master's in computer science. If you think you want to focus on, say, the business end, go get an MBA.
And also do internships, because then you see what skills, and you talk to more senior people, and then you see what kind of skills they're after. So for me, I was working in a lab, so because I was in between doing a PhD or just going straight to work. So my original idea was to do a PhD, and then I started the master's, and then I decided to go to work after that. So that's the other thing, your life might change. So you might start with one path and then decide to go somewhere else, and it's completely fine. But having that internship experience and the lab experience was really interesting, because I saw two completely versions of electrical engineering. So I don't know how that applies to computer science, but see how much experience you can get during undergrad to make an informed decision at first. Yeah.
I think personally, I did 3 completely different internships. So my first one was as a developer at Entwine Connect. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's inside of Olin. And so that was a small startup. And then I worked at PNC on the business side of things. And then I was a business analyst / product owner for IBM. And so at that point I knew, okay, I definitely want to go into software engineering, because I really like coding, but I knew I wanted to be a front-end software engineer, because I really like just the visual aspect of everything. So I knew I didn't want to pursue anything like Masters of Computer Science or anything like that, because many people I've talked to in the field, they feel like a lot of the knowledge you get with the hands-on experience is kind of enough in that field. It's dependent person on person. Like if you want to get a specialty in that, then you can go back and get your master's for it. But I'm not going to get my MBA with my day-to-day like work that I do from computer science. And so that's why I chose to do that now. And also too, it's good to get a little work experience. Depends on what you want to do or not. But if you want to do some work experience right out of college, so then you can see, okay, do I really like this, or do I want to go back to school? Because you can give it a 6-month to a year try and be like, okay, this really isn't for me. I want to go back to school.
I would definitely echo Anna and Brianna there. You don't have to stick with the first path that you take. Both can be valuable. As an undergraduate, you have opportunities to take electives. I took some graduate courses. I also took some economics courses, which aren't exactly business, but the graduate courses got me close enough to see what grant proposal writing looked like, and that chased me out of academia the same way that looking at the amount of paperwork for becoming a lawyer chased me out of law. And so, for me, getting some industry internships, I felt a lot happier with that, even though I did end up getting my master's eventually in parallel. I also know people who pursue their MBA in parallel with industry jobs. A lot of companies offer support for education. I will say it's a lot harder to go back to school after being away from it for a bit, but it's certainly not impossible. A lot of people do it. So there's plenty of options, which probably doesn't help you choose, but hopefully gives you a sense that whatever you choose, it's not the wrong answer.
Well, if you can't choose, do both.
Thank you.
But mind the burnout.
Yes.
Let's leave.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Shodas, and probably this question more for Anna, because I know you did research as an undergrad, but it may be also applicable for you. So if you went back in time, would you choose to work in one lab for a couple of years to do something meaningful and impactful, or would you choose to work in different labs and just get exposed to as much thing as you can?
I think you need to find a lab and a research project that it really echoes with you. So the one that I was working with was actually with Dr. Zorman, and the project was amazing. So you're going to be much more motivated if you really believe in the project. So if you do find something like that, I would say stick to one. But if you don't get that passion and if you don't get along as well with your PI, do switch labs. It's not something that is written in stone. That's right.
Yeah, so from my perspective, it's more mentoring undergraduates and facilitating undergraduate research. I think in general, it's better to stick with one because there's a lot of time involved with, say, training and learning the skills you need to do the project. And as an undergrad, your time is kind of limited anyway when you have classes and other priorities, which you should. So if you can leverage that training and, say, learning the literature initially for, say, a couple of years, that's probably going to be more beneficial than lab hopping. But yeah, if it's not working for you, then yeah, find something that does work for you better, for sure.
Hello, my name is Asya. I kind of wanted to follow up on Ashley's question and ask a little bit more about a master's degree. So far as climbing the ladder in industry, how significant is a master's degree, like an MBA or a computer science master's, when it comes to being a manager or other higher level positions? Are you put into greater consideration if you have a master's as opposed to if you don't?
I think that the way things work now, it's more so how you work versus what credentials you have. I'm doing it to better myself as a person so that I know I'm more ready for those roles as they come down the line, versus if you have those roles on your resume and somebody's like, oh, well, this person's definitely a manager, and you're really not ready to be a manager or you're really not ready for those upper level roles. So you could be somebody who never pursues your master's and you're a fantastic programmer and you just have such a depth of knowledge in a certain topic and you can continue moving up the ladder, or you can be a fantastic developer and a manager and then they move you up the ladder that way and they let you manage other people and projects. So I think it's all about how you want to develop yourself, not necessarily how you want the company to see you. That makes sense.
There's only one thing if you need your master's for the job that you're going to pursue. So for example, if you want to do IC design, you do need a master's because you need to learn more skills in order to do that. So they won't even consider you for that position in case you don't have that degree. So I think those are two different aspects. So you need to see what kind of job you're looking into. Yeah.
For computer science specifically, I would say that it is a differentiator when you start. A lot of times the job applications are something like so many years in experience in the industry or also have some advanced degree. And then beyond that, I mean, the knowledge that you gain is yours and yours to leverage. but at least for pure masters in CIS, it did not matter. I fought going into management kicking and screaming, actually, and they pulled me in there, but there's plenty of folks that I work with that are managers and higher level contributors that don't have advanced degrees. They never ask about it when they're considering you.
Hi, my name's Emma. Do you guys have any advice on how, like if we have a tech internship coming up, like how we can best prepare for it?
Be on time. Well, that's like the number one thing. Be on time. Make sure you know where you need to be. Dress professionally. Like even though they say like business casual, don't dress under casual. Like make sure it's better to dress too much than to dress under because then you see what everybody else is wearing. You're like, okay, so this is how far I can kind of push the envelope. And then just make sure you ask all the right questions ahead of time. Like, what time am I supposed to be at work? What time? Because some places are like, oh, we don't start till 9. And then other teams are like, we have our first meeting at 8:30, so we want you at the office at 8. So that's what I found has helped me. And then asking like, are there going to be devices provided or do I need to get my own device? Because if you're doing like a coding internship or something like that, they may provide a laptop for you, they may not. So that's something nice to know going in. So ultimately, I guess I'm saying at the end of the day, just be prepared. Just ask the right questions, make sure you know all the miscellaneous things that you should know, and just kind of keep that person in contact in your back pocket. So then you ask them, hey, I'm here, where am I supposed to go now? Or who do I contact if I need to know this information? So, yeah.
And then you know when you're taking a really hard exam that you don't understand anything from the question and you start writing down what you know and then things start to make sense, but you're writing your thought process. So one thing that I saw, I did a lot of technical interviews. One thing that I realized is that they're really interested in seeing how you think. So even if you look at the problems, like I have no idea what this is, if you start laying down what you know and building towards a solution, even if the solution is wrong, if you think it right, they might be like, okay, we like this person. So it's like, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess this question is mostly for Jessica. As you know, you worked in smaller companies and bigger companies. So what has your growth been, or how has it been different in smaller companies versus bigger companies? And as new college graduates, which may be better for our growth as like computer scientists and people in the industry?
Okay, I'll start with the second one. I would say that you can be successful either way. What I talked about before in terms of there's more support systems in place at the larger companies. If you are still trying to build your skill set, there's more there to give you the latitude to build that. You're not put day one on the spot of, here's your first sprint, gotta deliver in 2 weeks, good luck. And also figure out if you need a tablet and all the other stuff while you're getting going. On the other hand, the first job that I had was at a large company, and after the excitement of having my first real job kind of wore off, I realized they view me as a very junior person and there wasn't a lot of growth potential in that particular little organization, and I felt pretty stifled. There was a role that they had mapped out for me, and it was a junior role, and you need to be in that for a while before you start getting to actually make a difference. And ultimately that led me to go to a small company where suddenly I got thrown way over to the other side of, well, you seem to articulate yourself very well and you seem very confident. Why don't you be a tech lead and an architect at the same time? You haven't done this before, but it'll be fine. Yes, it will be fine. Oh my God. So a lot of stress, work-life balance went right out the window. But I learned a lot about my limits. I got to wear a lot of different hats. Some I learned that I didn't want to have to wear again, and that helped me figure out what I wanted for the next step. I came to Google as an individual contributor, software engineer, and knew that I really wanted to gravitate into technical leadership, where I was leading designs on projects and doing that. So that part was intentional. The why don't you do management on top of that was definitely not intentional, but I feel I have grown into it.
Hi panelists, my name's Wendy. So I know all of you work in different industries. So how has like the work culture differ in the industry that you work for as graduating with E degree, computer science degree?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question very well.
I think she was asking the culture and how it's different in all our different fields.
So in the VA and academia, I would say it's very collaborative is really the goal. People are trying to figure out where they can help move your project ahead, or they're always willing to help. So definitely, I would say collaborative.
Yeah, same. I think the culture at Google is pretty cool. What I've experienced so far is pretty collaborative. And in my last job, it wasn't as much. So I think that's also when you're interviewing for a position, also interview the company. So see if the values are the same, if it's a collaborative, if it's more cutthroat, because that can also happen if it's So also interview the company.
And culture is like two things. It's not only just the company, but then it's also the team.
Yes.
Because the whole culture of the company can be great. You can get along with people you see down the hallway and everything. And then your team culture could be the most toxic thing you've ever been on. I have a great inclusive team culture, and I think that's it. It's collaborative, it's inclusive. People are willing to stop what they're doing and help people. Like, I work on an app that has multiple sub teams on it, but our whole team is 40 people, but we all separate into like the separate part that we support. And somebody on another part like reached out to me yesterday, and we spent the whole day fixing an issue together. It's just that type of environment of, yeah, I'll help you. It's not, well, I'm scared to ask for help. So it's very collaborative, and it allows for growth of learning new things. And everybody's like, oh, I'll go get my AWS certification, or I'll go get this because the team's doing it, not just a one-off person wants to.
Well, definitely echo Brianna's point around there's microcultures within the larger culture, particularly at larger companies. Tends to be a little harder to dig into before you start at the company. You try to interview the team, but you only see a very small portion of it. There tends to be a whisper network that happens, so once you're starting, you're able to kind of interview other teams more subtly if you're wanting to have internal mobility. That is one of the other nice things about a larger company. There's other opportunities without necessarily leaving the company itself. I have seen a range of behaviors. One of the companies that I worked at worked with the electrical utilities, and it was the good old boys network. They were welcoming of me, but it was not something that would pass muster for a HR department. So it was interesting. Google has been much, much better on that side, and also there's more support systems in place when there are microtoxic cultures, both to rescue yourself and to start indicating that there's a problem so that it can be dealt with, so that other people don't have to suffer it either.
Thank you very much. I know you all have many questions for our panelists, but I don't want to keep you away from the food any longer. So I want to thank our panelists one more time. Thank you very much.